Can the Hornets bounce back from a rough week? Plus, what happened between James Borrego and James Bouknight on the bench? We'll talk about that today on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
You are Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, where we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, local experts on the #1 daily sports podcast network. Check us out on all platforms and listen to the pod. You can also check out YouTube, over 1,000 subscribers. We're going to have to figure out the face paint thing as time goes on. Follow us on Twitter, Walker Mail, Doug Branson, LOH, Locked On Hornets. And if you are on YouTube, you can see that Doug's house got an upgrade. That's a pretty sweet little view you got.
Yeah, I'm coming to you live right now from Los Angeles. I've got it in the background. Beautiful sunrise happening over the Hollywood Hills behind me. I'm in LA for Radio Row, the Super Bowl media extravaganza. Locked On is here. We've got the hosts from both Locked On Bengals and Locked On Rams here, as well as Locked On NFL. So if you are at all a fan of football, the Super Bowl, make sure to check out all of those shows. There, I've done my Locked On duty. Wait, it's over here. Done my Locked On duty for today.
You're definitely a company man. Now all we need to see you do is ask random people and random athletes what they think of LaMelo Ball and really what they think of this Bouknight Borrego situation.
Well, I mean, it's exploding on Twitter. I don't know if you saw my tweet. I tweeted out the video. That's all. I just tweet the spiciest, grainy videos of my own television, and then they blow up on Twitter. This confrontation between Bouknight and Borrego has brought out all of the Bouknight fans. I didn't know Bouknight had such a hive, and he does, and we don't know that because he doesn't play a lot. And then it brought out LaMelo fans, and they did what is the meme where the two strong hands shake?
It is Rocky and it is Apollo Creed. They are both shaking hands and
over Fire Borrego.
Right, correct. It serves as the millennial Venn diagram. Those people connecting all at once, and when you look at what happened there, it's something we can try to break down, right? So James Borrego in the middle of that game, the score was over and done with by then, right? Like the Hornets, it was basically about to be a blowout from Miami.
Yeah, I believe the margin going into the fourth quarter was 25.
Right.
That's not insurmountable in the NBA in the fourth quarter, but it certainly would have been like headline, fourth quarter comebacks, 20-plus points. It's not, I think the Celtics have done it this year. It's not like impossible, but it's pretty improbable.
So for all intents and purposes, right, it looked like it was going to be over in that game.
Right.
And James Borrego goes over to the bench. He talks to James Bouknight, and then Bouknight gets up in a challenging way. If you haven't seen the video, it's out there by our own Doug Branson. Kind of gets up in a challenging way. Borrego doesn't have any of the smoke for him, and it's not like he's scared. He just isn't going to get involved in that type of thing as the head coach.
Borrego didn't flinch. It was sort of like the Kobe play where he threw the ball at Kobe and Kobe didn't flinch. Like I didn't see Borrego flinch at all. He wasn't trying to increase the confrontation, which you would expect from an NBA head coach, but he definitely wasn't backing up in any way.
No. So Borrego just calmly kind of walks back, and I believe it was one of the assistant coaches, maybe Chad Iskey, I think, was there to try to calm Bouknight down and then take him off of the bench. Okay, lots to get to here because, Doug, it's the first time that we've seen anybody publicly go after Borrego, and this is somewhat of a unusual circumstance. It's not like I imagine if you asked a ton of coaches how many of those instances they have, I would imagine, I don't know, maybe a couple on their resume, but I can't imagine that have been practicing this for a long time, but I don't think there's been a lot, and this is the first time we've seen this from Borrego, at least in that kind of challenging of a manner. We know Cody Zeller wanted to be valued. We know Malik Monk wanted to be valued. We know some comments that hinted, not exactly happy with my role, but by all what we've seen from him, he's kind of been tabbed as this player's coach, and I believe that. I think the players genuinely do like Borrego and his honesty with them. But here we go, rookie Bouknight, halfway through the season, a little bit past it. Borrego got his first challenge on the Pine the other day.
Well, let's talk about a couple of reasons why this was so unusual, because I had someone on Twitter reply to the tweet that, players and coaches argue all the time that this wasn't really a big deal. But it was a big deal because players and coaches may argue, even mid-game they may have arguments. But I don't know many incidents where a player steps up like that in a way that, you can't signal anything.
Put him up, buddy. Like, that's what it was kind of like from Bouknight. I'm ready to go if you are.
Yeah, and so that was strange. It was strange that it came from Bouknight because we've had no indication thus far and we haven't had a lot of indication anyway from Bouknight because we haven't seen Bouknight play a lot. But from the comments that I've read from fans of Bouknight, this was strange for them. They did not expect Bouknight to be that animated, and it happened mid-game. We hear all the time about players and coaches having confrontations when the cameras are away in the locker room, when things are a little bit more private. But for this to happen mid-game, I think was extremely unusual, and that someone would have to be taken to the locker room and not return to the bench makes this super unusual. And the fact that Bouknight was played for 14 seconds at the end of the third quarter, that's the first time he checked in. And then in the fourth quarter, doesn't get inserted back into the game. And I think that's where Bouknight's frustration has been building. This isn't the first time this season we've heard from him about, playing time and wanting to be out there. And he's tried to sort of hide it in that language that you have to hide it in so that you don't look like you're selfishly demanding playing time. Mm-hmm. But he certainly voiced that. And when he doesn't get inserted back into a game where the Hornets are down 25 points, I can certainly relate to his frustration, but at the same time, you can't do that in the middle of a game.
And especially, like if you look at the game log, I should say, for Bouknight, he got minutes against Oklahoma City. That's when he really started to, flirt with some playing time. Only 7 minutes there. But then Atlanta, Toronto, Indiana, 3 games in a row, he gets 17 or more. Against the Lakers, he gets 7 minutes. Clippers, 19. And then, as you mentioned, against the Miami Heat, barely gets any register. And Bouknight, after having that type of experience, after having been in games, being a part of the rotation, guys start to get back healthy, and Bouknight is now buried on the bench. And Borrego puts him on the sideline, and Bouknight not really having it. And so one other thing, go ahead, Doug.
Well, I was just going to say, we can sit here and rationalize why Bouknight is not getting playing time right now. We can say, look, he made a great argument for playing time in the future, but right now the Hornets are fully healthy. They've got a roster full of veterans. They want to win. Who do you play Bouknight over? Like Cody Martin is one of their best defenders. Who do you can't sub them out for a forward. They already have enough of a difficult time defending as they've shown these past couple of games, especially when the other team has size. They struggle, and Bouknight's not going to help you do that. And so he's in a really tough situation. We can do all of that rationalization, right? But Bouknight doesn't care about that. Bouknight only cares about, and to be fair to him, he should really only, in terms of his own ability to play and make money and have a future in this league, he has to care about his own playing time. I just think the way he showed that frustration was probably misguided.
Yeah, and I hope that's not what I was saying with the game log, because that's not. It doesn't mean that he gets to do that, because I'm sure there are plenty of players that want to get more playing time. In fact, there were players just last year that wanted more playing time and weren't getting it, and certainly didn't act like that. And we can do the whole Bouknight as a rookie thing. He doesn't understand. This is the first time he's ever not played. This is the first time he's not been a star, not been just the flat-out best player on his team. It's the first time that's ever really happened to Bouknight in his career. The only other time I can remember any displeasure with James Bouknight, or James Borrego, God, the JB thing, that's getting me. With James Borrego on the floor, I remember Terry Rozier, maybe last year or 2 years ago, kind of rolled his eyes, walked away from Borrego, trying to say something to him. Borrego then continues to coach, and that was about it. But here we have it. Bouknight not exactly pleased with the decisions of one James Borrego. And interestingly enough, the game that should have gotten the UConn rookie more minutes was against Toronto. Who do they play tonight? It's against the Raptors. I don't know if that's something Borrego might want to go back to, because you had some good minutes from Bouknight in that last game against the Raptors, but you're healthy now. You got Kelly back. You got Gordon back. We've got an update on Jalen McDaniels, too. We'll do that after the break. First, let's talk about Built Bar. This is the time of year that a lot of people might have given up on the New Year's resolutions. Look, I know there's not too many that I've stuck with in the years past, but when it comes to staying fit, Built Bar makes it easier for you to stay up to date with your New Year's resolutions because they've got so many good Built Bars that are healthy for you. Not only do you have the banana cream pie, the coconut marshmallow, you've got those staples, but they're low in calories, they're low in sugar, and they're high in protein. So low in carbs as well. It's something else that they don't offer that is unhealthy for you. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, let's actually talk about the basketball side of things with the Charlotte Hornets team. Talk about them coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
You are listening to the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Main character of American Psycho was Patrick Bateman, which really confused me. I always thought that Jason Bateman was Patrick Bateman and that Patrick Bateman was Jason Bateman.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Thanks for making Locked On Hornets your first listen. The NBA trade deadline is Thursday, February 10th at 3 p.m. Hornets could be interested in that. The Locked On NBA podcast will be covering it live from 2 to 4 p.m. Join Kim Becker, John Corrales, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to get analysis of every blockbuster move. Subscribe to Locked On NBA YouTube and turn your notifications on so you know when they go live. Yeah, we'll start to get, look, we've talked about the trade deadline for a long time with the Charlotte Hornets team. It's coming up. We've got 3 days before the deadline comes up, and the Hornets have to make a move if they want to, if they really want to try to change this roster.
Well, we can dig in because I know we have a lot of basketball to talk about because this weekend was crazy. I mean, not only this Bouknight confrontation, but they get blown out against Miami, and then there was some crazy stuff that happened in that Cleveland game. Let's get to the trade stuff tomorrow because there is some stuff heating up right now about P.J. Washington's future in a Hornets uniform and possibly Miles Turner, his future in a Hornets uniform. So we should definitely dive into that tomorrow.
All right, well, let's go Cleveland then first. It's the first game. We'll go chronologically. And the Hornets, they lose 102-101 against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they did that on Friday night. It looked like it was going to be a blowout on Cleveland's end, where at least it had all the makings of that, and then Charlotte, they come back and actually tie this thing up and have the lead at the end of the fourth quarter, except not the very end. That's when Cleveland is able to find a way to go to the free throw line. Eventually, Kevin Love would hit both free throws, and that would be all they need, 102-101. Cavs walk away with a victory. Let's start with how he got to that foul line. It was a tie-up on the rebound that was an initial miss with Cleveland's possession. It was Terry Rozier and it was Kevin Love. At first, you thought maybe that foul call would be on the floor, but instead it was Kevin Love claiming and the officials claiming that he was trying to shoot it as he had the basketball in his hands while Terry was tied up with him on that rebound. He would go to the foul line, hit both, and they would lose. Was that the right call? And we can get into the other madness that took place even before that on both sides. But did you think that was the right call to have Kevin Love shooting?
Oh, well, no, it wasn't the right call. And the NBA and the 2-minute report decided it wasn't the right call as well. But then they went back. But then they went back and said that the call on Gordon Hayward, where he got tied up with Isaac Okoro, which the broadcast and I think everybody watching thought, hey, Isaac Okoro just manhandled Gordon Hayward on that play, and there should be a foul against Okoro. The NBA said the foul should actually be against Gordon Hayward, and then they didn't address this in the 2-minute report, but they did. The refs did address it after the game. There was a play before that, weird play where like Ed Davis, who was on the Cavs bench, touched. They had blown the whistle, so the play was dead, I imagine, but then Terry Rozier just throws up a three, just like a practice three, and Ed Davis comes off the bench and like touches Rozier on the back, and so they tee up Ed Davis, but the play was dead. Rozier missed the practice three, but they counted the three. None of it makes sense, but it ended up 4 points for the Charlotte Hornets. So I think even if you go, well, the ref should have called that play a non-shooting foul, and the Cavs should have had to win the game outright. I mean, the Hornets got 4 freebies. So instead of talking about that, we would have been talking about how the Hornets essentially stole one in Cleveland. So whatever way you look at it, the Hornets got beat 30-15 in the second quarter. Just inexcusable. There was inexcusable stuff that happened in this game that the Hornets should have walked away with this with the win and momentum, taking them into Miami. That probably would have helped. Probably would have not resulted in this James Bouknight affair. And just a really disappointing effort in that second quarter that I think cost them the game. Not any of this foul business.
No, it didn't. I hate that as well, blaming refs for a loss, especially when they were bad for equal sides. Maybe the Hornets got the worst end of it, but they did get 4 free points because what happened for the Hornets to get those 4 points made absolutely no sense, and it was hilarious. All of us trying to figure out, like Sherlock Holmes, how in the hell they got 3 and then another additional.
It was Walker, I'm not going to mince words. That was the worst officiated game.
It was so bad
that I have ever seen in my life.
And people locally were just coming off of that North Carolina-Louisville game that actually helped the Tar Heels, and so it was funny to have that game right off the heels of the.
Well, I thought that was officiated fairly. Actually, I thought they.
Yeah, I'm sure you
just
did. A former alum. Yeah, no, it was great. It was an excellent college game.
But the thing about the going back to that final play where Love gets the 2 free throws, the Hornets challenged it and they got a second look at it. They got 2 looks at this thing and still got it wrong.
Yeah.
And that's where I think if you're the NBA, you've got to really take a close inspection of that particular crew and some of those members and say, I know there's been some issues with referee staffing because of COVID and different things, but that's that's Bush League stuff. That's not professional basketball officiating. That's weird, like rec league BS where you go home, but there are no stakes there. You go home, you have a few beers, you call it off. But there are real stakes on the line here, and I'm just disappointed in what the NBA threw out there officiating wise.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where you want to go to elsewhere in this game before we move on. The Hornets actually got off to a good start. I thought that was crucial, right? Like we had talked about actually building a lead and not having to dig yourself out of that hole at the end of the game. Well,
I know where I want to go.
All right, well, go ahead. Please take the floor.
I'll go right here. Jarrett Allen, 29 points, 22 rebounds, 11 offensive rebounds. I mean, my goodness. He was 12 of 20 from the field, only shot 7 free throw attempts. So he gets his 29 by simply dominating the Hornets inside. Mason Plumlee, by the way, finished the game 31 minutes, 4 of 6 from the field, 8 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals. Not a terrible game from Mason Plumlee, but they had to put Mason Plumlee out on the floor because Allen was just dominating everyone else. PJ Washington, 26 minutes in this game, 3 of 4 from the field, 8 points, 9 rebounds himself, but they just could not keep Jarrett Allen off the offensive boards. And that was part of the reason they lost this game.
Yeah, I mean, it was. And Mason Plumlee can't be the answer. And I know a lot of people are kind of questioning James Borrego's rotation again because Mason is out there playing big-time minutes. He's playing in the closing time of games.
But you had to get a body. You had to get a body out there that could do something against Jarrett Allen.
I don't think anybody was doing anything against Jarrett Allen. And I think I include Mason Plumlee in that. Either way, to your point, though, I think to your larger point where you're wanting to get to, I see where you want to go, Doug. It's not having that body on the roster anyway.
Mitch, do something. That's where I want to get to. Mitch.
That's what you want to get to. But we got to hold off on the trade deadline talk. We'll talk more basketball stuff here with Cleveland and the Miami Heat. Here's something else you kind of look at. Miles Bridges has been awfully quiet here recently. I mean, Miles had if I go to his game log and check this out, against the Clippers, he had 18. And so against the Lakers, he had 26. Really good in that game. Then against the Clippers, 6 of 19, only 18 points. Only 6 against Boston, and that was a 6-point loss that they suffered to the Celtics on the road. Only had 12, only 8 attempts in the 2 games against Boston and Cleveland. In his 37 minutes, by the way, only 8 field goal attempts. And then he had 14 against Miami and only scored 15 points. Not shooting well from 3. In fact, was 0 of 9 coming into one of 14 coming into that game against Miami, and then added a 1 of 6 there. So the shooting, it's going even further down, Doug, after already what has been a career worst shooting from the perimeter for Miles Bridges. Anything you notice with his game right now?
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think the off shooting has been something we've talked about all season. It's weird he's missing free throws too. Like something's off, and I don't know that it's going to really fix itself in the season. It may need maybe mechanic, maybe something they have to look at in the off season to try to shake out, because it is an odd. I mean, he was one of the best free throw shooters, I think the best free throw shooter for the team last season.
Well, he was flirting with the 50, 40, 90 club last year.
Right.
I mean, yeah, he was excellent everywhere.
So that's odd. Gordon Hayward coming off of this COVID injury and then COVID, his offense has been completely in the tank. I mean, it's been miserable. But that's not unusual for players coming off of COVID absences. I just feel like that's been a trend in the NBA. You come off the COVID absence and you are not 100%. You're not like immediately ready to go, and that feels like the case here with Gordon. So all of these things are kind of combining. There's also a LaMelo situation where it just doesn't seem like Borrego fully 100% trusts LaMelo Ball's decision making with the basketball. And so I think both in this Cleveland game and this Miami game, you had situations where Borrego was going away from LaMelo Ball for stretches where he typically would depend on LaMelo Ball. So all of these things are combining for Hornets losses, and people in my Menchie's very angry.
Oh, same. Oh, yeah, especially the Gordon Hayward stuff, too. People have had a field day with his 3 of 13 and his bad performance against Miami.
I mean, and listen, there's no disputing it.
Oh,
I'm not gonna, it's been bad, and they're paying him a lot of money to not play poorly. So
yeah,
I mean, I get it.
So 4 straight losses for Charlotte. Not exactly all rosy here in the Queen City, trying to figure out how to get. And they're going to have to try to figure it out against Tehran. Maybe we can talk more about that Miami game, although, man, I don't know what else you want to discuss with that one. It was all pretty bad. We'll try to break it down in the next segment. BetOnline does have you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. As football continues its march to the Super Bowl, you got this big game coming up that Doug is going to be on site for in just now less than a week's worth of time. Pretty awesome to see. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. It's not just football, by the way. They have up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, FC, along with live real-time updates of current games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. Bet online, where the game starts. One more segment to go on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
This is Locked On Hornets.
Then I clicked on M. Thomas. I'm like, who the hell is M. Thomas? Matt Thomas is his name.
NBA legend, Matty Thomas. Matt
he
Thomas, I'm pretty sure Matt Thomas served me at an Applebee's the other day.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
I will say it's been delightful watching the sun rise in the background. You picked an excellent spot. They gave you an excellent room so we could check this out.
Yeah, it's been good, but the lighting, I'm a video production geek, and the lighting situation here has gotten progressively worse as it's gotten brighter behind me. I'm going to get this lighting. Some of my lighting equipment is off-site right now. So if you're watching, just understand I'm going to get this lighting stuff figured. I'm going to fix the lighting.
Mm-hmm. You look red now because of the lighting.
Yeah, I know. I got this one overhead bulb just, raining down warm light on me. And the Hornets, it's really opposite of what the Hornets are right now.
Yeah,
they are cold as ice.
I was thinking of the same segue. Nice job, even across the country. Thinking about the same exact segue. Yeah, that's what
aligned.
We do. 20-point loss almost, and it should have been more. How about this, Doug? 35-8 in the third quarter. The Hornets lost the third quarter itself by 30 points. And this is after, they only scored 23 in the first, but they come back, hold Miami to 15 in the second. So it's a close game heading into the third quarter, and then it really wasn't heading into the fourth because of the way that Miami was able to separate themselves.
I can't remember, or I couldn't remember a worse quarter, but there actually was. I looked this up during the game because I had nothing better to do because the game was awful. But the Hornets actually had a 7-point first quarter in 2016. I don't know if you remember this game. It was against the San Antonio Spurs.
Oh, yes.
And it was that 15-16 team. And Jeremy Lin went on to have a pretty incredible game off the bench. I believe it was off the bench. He may have been starting in place of Kemba Walker. He had a few starts that year. But 7-point first quarter. They went on to win that game. They did not. Well, you can have a 7-point first quarter. You got plenty of time to come back. But when you have an 8-point third quarter, I don't. We talk a lot about coaching in this game, and I think so much of coaching is getting guys ready. Coming into that first quarter, and I think people in professional sports, I think people overemphasize the role of a head coach at halftime. That this idea of like the head coach coming in and like giving a fiery speech. But I mean, they were up 5. Like, what are you going to say to the team? Like, hey, just keep doing what you're doing. You're up 5 on the Miami Heat, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Keep going. And then instead of keeping going, they got gone and they got run out of the gym. And it's just one more thing.
So you're looking at Borrego. Like, it sounds.
No. What I'm saying is I'm not looking at Borrego. I'm saying,
gotcha.
What was Borrego supposed to do at half? Hey guys, you're up 5. Keep doing what you're doing, and then they come out and lay an egg. And I think it speaks more to the maturity of this team, the maturity of the players. To say, I think you just got to come out at half with a better mentality.
Well, and to me, I think when people talk about coming out of the break, it's not necessarily the win one for the Gipper speech that you're expecting. It's all about the adjustments, right? So if whatever happens in the first half, it's almost like a mini game within the game. Can you adjust and then try to win the second one enough to where you win the overall thing? And that's, you look at the Charlotte Hornets, that stat you brought up the other day, Doug, of the plus minus in every single quarter this year. Hornets were +6. It was their best quarter by a pretty significant
They typically
margin.
make great adjustments.
Yeah. And it didn't happen in this one, and by the least bit. And you talk about a well-coached team on the other side. Eric Spoelstra is one of the best in the NBA, and Miami playing they weren't playing phenomenally heading into this game. But still, Miami, a really talented team. They did have that win against San Antonio, but they had lost 3 straight, 2 to Toronto, 1 to Boston, kind of similar to what the Hornets were doing. But they also have had guys in and out of the lineup, so kind of a weird situation for the Heat right now. Either way, the Hornets gave them a gift by laying up an egg in the third.
Yeah, and you'll be unsurprised to know that one of the adjustments that Miami did make out of the break was just to pound the ball to Bam Adebayo, who had nine field goal attempts, 10 points, also set up a few of those Butler buckets. He was 4 of 4 for 9 points. They were 4 of 7 from 3, so they were efficient, but it wasn't like that third quarter for the Miami Heat was just them bombing threes over and over again. I mean, the story on the Hornets is, if you can be the more physical team, if you can be the team that can get the ball in the paint and finish, you're going to have a good time against the Charlotte Hornets team, because I wouldn't, if we're talking about like what is the identity of this Hornets team, I would not call that identity, I would call it resilient, but I would not call it like physically tough. I think the story's out on them. And when the shooting isn't there, which it hasn't been, like the 3-point shooting has been god awful lately. That's been the thing that the Hornets could rely on to not only help them get back into games, but also really hurt teams and build leads. And all of that has gone away. That was their main weapon. And now they teams that go through these shooting slumps can typically, good teams that are like competitive and can be in the playoffs, and teams like Miami can lean on physical toughness or manufacturing offense, to get them through those shooting slumps, and the Hornets just simply cannot do that.
Yeah, and I think another thing, too, like something I was really worried about was moving the basketball coming into the season, and I was pleasantly surprised to see they were still moving it at a high level. Didn't matter if they had some of the guys off of the team that could facilitate well. Players improved themselves as playmakers. Miles Bridges improved as a playmaker. Terry Rozier kind of got a little more in the mix. I feel like his assists are up this year. I haven't checked that against the last. But my point being, like, I feel like in these losses, you don't see the ball move as much, and that's why I think even a LaMelo, when you look at some of the assist lines he's given you, when you look at this game against, you've seen games from him before, at least, where there's a low assist total and it's like kind of a weird game overall for the Charlotte Hornets when they play.
Well, it's not only that the ball is not moving a ton, that they're really more relying on sort of one-on-one opportunities at isolation basketball, or at least like one person touches, goes to the rim and tries to finish. Yeah, it's some of that, but it's also when the ball moves, it's been moving sloppily. I mean, you look at that third quarter where they got beat 35-8, and they had 8 turnovers in that quarter. I mean, this has been a generally low turnover team. That's what I'm saying. The whole Hornets world is upset. When you lose 4 in a row, a lot of those things that made you successful are going to suddenly turn upside down, and the Hornets have generally been very good at protecting the basketball and moving the ball, and now it's all opposite. And they have an opportunity against the Toronto Raptors tonight to turn things around, but the Raptors have been doing everything right. They have an all-star selection. They've got a guy in Fred VanVleet who didn't play in the last game. It was Gary Trent Jr. that hurt them January 25th when they last met. That was a game that the Hornets were out of pretty early and couldn't really claw back in. So. I don't know. It seems like the Hornets are kind of teeter-tottering on oblivion. They're sitting 9th in the East now, so they're not even in the endless middle anymore. They are on the verge of really being at the bottom of the play-in now. I honestly don't know. I'm kind of at a loss at this point.
Yeah, it's disappointing. And just real quickly about the assist for LaMelo. LaMelo had 3 assists against Miami, had 3 assists against Cleveland, had 3 against Toronto just the past couple of weeks. Had 4 against Orlando in that weird loss in the middle of what was euphoria for us Charlotte Hornets fans. Like, this is, the last couple of months, you've started to see, I think maybe it's when LaMelo's trying to figure out when he should take over offensively, just the overall flow within the game. Because you look before that, Doug, I mean, you don't see a lot of low assist numbers from him before December. Before that, you had one game where you had 3 against the Clippers at the very beginning of the season. One game where you had 4. It's kind of it. You had 3 against Orlando even earlier on too. Like, this was somebody that was the show running everything, and I. Like, as much as the improvement and the development matters for him to be, I'm going to go get my bucket, and we've seen him capable of that. Just look at the Milwaukee game. It's just probably better for the team if it's like, look, LaMelo, we just need you organizing everything. Like, shoot the basketball well, which he's kind of had better shooting games.
Okay, but when you put it that way, that that doesn't sound very fun. And that doesn't sound like, hey, go organize everything. Like, when has anyone ever said, hey, go organize this stuff? And
You're saying he wants to score. He wants to get in the point column.
Let's go organize some stuff. Well, I'm saying that doesn't, the guy who organizes everything is not the guy who gets voted into the All-Star game.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not at this stage. Chris Paul is kind of like that. Special player, doesn't average a ton of points. Like, I think there's a way for him to do that. But yeah, we'll see exactly what takes place, and then we'll see if the Hornets can get back on track tonight against the Toronto Raptors. That'll do it for the Locked On Hornets podcast. Thanks to Doug for waking up early, watching the sunrise, all with us here over the Hollywood Hills. Now make sure your second listen is Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. Thanks again for hopping on with us. We'll be back with you tomorrow.